Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So let us continue our discussion on machine learning lectures. In this lecture, let us continue the discussion on feature extraction and then move on to the other aspects of machine learning. I'm sharing the screen. Hope you are able to see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
So what?
sir.
Yeah. Please tell. Somebody is telling something. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Fine. So let's move on. See, in the previous class, what we were discussing. Previous video lectures, what were our discussions? Need quick answer? What is that we were mainly discussing in the previous video lectures? Previous lectures. Yeah, some answer is expected quickly. None of you know?
We were discussing how to find corner points in an image.
Okay.
And we
So we
found
were,
that Harris corner detector can perform the job.
right, fine. So why we are interested in corner points? Why we are interested in finding corner points?
So as you told, those are unique points and they can be easily tracked between
Right.
two different.
So the usual problems in image processing or computer vision are we need to match across different images, or we need to match a template in a given image, or we need to recognize an image based on some features of the image. But should we look at the whole image, or are there any locations in the image where we can find very unique information, like distinguishable information that will help us to easily match or perform these tasks? Okay, so corner points are the key points, are the locations where we can get which are different from neighborhood, or which look slightly distinct from the neighborhood in all directions, and hence they're easy to match or easy to find out, okay, in a given image. For that reason, we have looked at some of the key point extractor or the key point detector methods, that is mainly the Harris scanner point. Okay, so now given the key points, so what is our next job? We need to find out, say for example, given this image and this image, what we want to say is whether these two images are same or not. That is our first question. Second question, assume that I want to find out if this image to this image, if there is some transformation that is happening. Okay, so let it be some affine transformation. Affine transformation in the sense some rotation, some scaling, okay, some translation, okay, and some shear as well. Now that means x and y directions may be stretched in different ways. Okay, so some such transformations happen from image 1 to image 2. In that case, see, if I want to find out how much is the transformation that has happened. First of all, I want to know whether they are same or not, same class or not. Okay, and then if they are same, I want to find out the transformation. If I have some such problems, what is important is I can find some unique points in the given image, first image. Say, assume that 1, okay, 2, and then 3, okay, and then 3 and 4 and 5. 5 points I have found here. I might have found only 3 points in the other image, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so these are being detected by key point detector with reasonable high thresholds and so on. Given this, now what I want to do between this and this, are there any, see, I have 5 key point locations here, okay, and here 3 key points. It's likely that among these 5, okay, 3 of them match to these 3 points. or among these 5, 2 of them may match, or even none of them may match. Okay, so if I want to say whether this image and this image belongs to the same object, it's if 3 points here, okay, matches with 3 points here, then I may say that these are corresponding points we call. Then it's likely that both corresponds to same object. Now the question is, I have got the points, fine, but how do I say whether this point and this point match or not? See, what I want to say is whether the point 2, okay, in first image I1, and the point, some other point, say point 1 in I2, will they match or not? I just want to tell, okay, or point, okay, so here you can see point 1 in I1 and point 2 in I2, are they corresponds to the same location, okay, or same object location? I want to tell. Now tell me, how should I proceed in doing this? There are 5 points overall here, okay, and there are 3 points overall here. I want to establish, are there any corresponding points? If there are corresponding points, I want to find it out. Tell me, how should we go about? Quickly, I need an answer. Yeah, tell quickly. Otherwise, I think we will not be able to discuss a reasonable number of topics. What do you think? Is the problem clear? Is the question clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what, any suggestions on this? See, assume that here, okay, first point may be I, okay, so x0 comma y0, okay, or x1 comma y1. Okay, at that location, I have first point, x1 comma y1 is first point. Okay, and second point is x2 comma y2. Okay, and hence intensity at that location is ix2 comma y2. Okay, here say this is I1. Okay, here the first point may be x1 dash comma y1 dash. Okay, and then the second point may be x2 dash comma y2 dash. Okay, given this information, the question is this very important question. Okay, if I want to establish this key point and this key point, x1 y1 is same as x1 dash y1 dash or x2 dash y2 dash, the information around it is same. What should I do? I think I am thinking it's very simple question. What should I do? Any suggestions on this?
The gradient should be equal in both.
Okay, so gradients around, say gradients at I x1 comma y1 should be equal to x1 dash comma y1 dash.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so but actually, see, if you compare only pixel wise, see the information in the image not at a pixel but in the neighborhood. Do you agree with me or not? Because at the pixel intensities, when I take them with different times or different scenarios, the intensity may be different, is it not? The gradient also may be different, slightly different, may not necessarily be quantitatively same, right?
Right, sir.
So what people look at is, instead of looking at a, say if I say a point, it's not the point I'm interested in, nor point only I will consider. I will consider a neighborhood around the point. That's why these you are able to see square, okay, square blocks, each of the around each of the key points, right? So that is the region in which I am considering the information and trying to match that information in the other image with corresponding key point. Do you find this more intuitive or not? We should not consider pixel-wise comparisons to establish whether these 2 points in image 1 and image 2 are same or not. Okay, to establish correspondence, but we should look at the bounding boxes around each of these locations, or the small patches or small image neighborhood, okay, or the neighborhood information to establish the correspondence. Do you agree with it or not? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine, very good. So if this is clear, now tell me. Okay, so I now have, say I will write general expression now, I1, okay, xk comma yk, this first image, okay, and then the second image what we have, I2, Okay, x1, xk dash, comma yk dash, or xl dash, comma yl dash. Okay, these are the pixels in the second image which I found. Okay, so k here may vary from 1 to 5 because I have found 5 key points. L here varies from 1 to 3. Okay, and now I want to establish the correspondence. You tell me now some simple procedures to do this.
Sir, if there was no scale variation or rotation, then we could have used correlation.
Right, very good. So if we want to use correlation, if there is not much transformations, okay, between the both of them, what we can do simply is x1, xk, comma yk, but I can't consider just the pixel. I want to consider a neighborhood. Okay, so to consider neighborhood, what I will do? So I will write it this as xk minus I, okay, comma yk minus I, j, okay, and into I2 of xl dash minus I, comma yl dash minus j, and then correlation I want to consider. So essentially dot product of these two, summation over what? Summation over what and what? And this correlation I may consider, okay, by norm of I1, I2, all that I can consider, but summation is over what? To find out correlation. Are you able to understand what I'm trying to write here? If I want to find correlation around a point, here what I'm doing, I'm taking, say, assume that this is a key point. I will mark another new key point just for our information. Okay, this is key point. Now, if you want to find correlation, what I will do? I will draw a bounding box around this. Okay, so here also there may be some point. Okay, assume that there is no much transformation between these two, and I have again a bounding box. Okay, of same dimensions because I want to find out correlation. Okay, if there is no scaling, other variations as he mentioned, we can use the same dimension. So this, let this be d cross b. Okay, and this is also d cross b. Now to find out the correlation, what I should do? I have to correlate between this patch and this patch. Fine. How do I do that mathematically? That's what I'm writing here. Okay, xk minus I, comma yk minus j into I2 of xl dash minus I into yl dash minus j. Is this clear or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, what is the limit? What this summation is over? If
I
this is
equal
clear.
to 0 to 1 to k and 1 to d and j equal to 1 to d.
Okay, very good. Is it 1 to d or something else?
0 to d minus 1.
D by 2 minus 1. Okay, you can ideally consider d by 2 minus 1 because we in either side we will be moving d by 2 pixels. Okay, but it's essentially over I and j. Is this fine or not? This is what I am writing it as correlation between the patches around, okay, x1, comma xk, comma yk and x dash. So I am establishing the relation between k and l. Okay, so key points. If I consider this key point is at k and this key point is at l, okay, I am considering between these two. Right? Is this fine or not? I can also consider normalized correlation if I want to knock off the intensity changes. Fine. So I can just divide by the norm of I1. Okay. So norm of I1. So I can also expand this, but I'm just leaving it now. I1 of xk, comma yk. So around this, if I want to find out norm, again I have to in fact do double summation I minus I j. Okay, I have to take and then whole squares I have to do. Okay, and then under square root they will come. Okay, similarly here double summation I2 of xl dash minus I, comma yl dash minus j. Okay, norm whole square. Okay, so here also usually people for anyway this is dot product we are taking, but all are positive, so no, there is no issue. Fine. Is this fine or not? This is one way of doing, but the thing is are there any other ways, you know, to find out the correspondence or to establish the correspondence? other than this correlation?
So maybe we can
Uh,
change the way we treat loss. If not correlation, maybe squared loss.
Yeah. We can also find sum of square differences. Oh, SSD people call K comma L. Okay. So again, simply I of, okay, xk minus I comma yk minus j minus I, this is I1, right? And I2 of xl dash minus I comma yl dash minus j whole square. This can be if it is square and summed over, okay, ij, and anyway, this is sum of square differences because we have squared them, we just apply square root. Okay, we can also do sum of absolute differences. Sum of absolute differences means in that case what we do is we just find the absolute difference. So I think I'm not writing the expression, but you can easily do it. Okay, so just that you don't apply square, you find mod. Okay, and find these differences. So these are the loss functions. So in this case, what we do, if we want to say K and L corresponds to corresponding points, okay, then what we say is, if this sum of square error or sum of absolute difference error, these two are errors. Okay, in matching them. Okay, if this is small, then we say that both K star is and L star are corresponding points. Okay, whereas correlation here is a similarity measure. So if it is high, then we say that K star and L star are corresponding points. This we check for all K and L. Okay, possible K and L. Is this clear or not?
Sir,
Huh?
just a small doubt.
Yeah.
The reason for considering K equals to 1 to 5 and L equals to 1 to 3, is it because the patch of those key points are different in both of those images?
Correct.
Size
So
of the
for
patch.
this example, I have considered not necessarily that they have to be 5 key points here and they have to be 3 key points
the
here.
approximate length of, the size of the patch.
No, not based on the size of the patch, but based on how many key points I find. See, what I'm doing once this image is given to me. Okay, I will apply Harris corner detector. Once I apply Harris corner detector, what I will be getting is an image, okay, of R. Okay, a matrix of R values for this. Is it not? In that matrix of R, okay, there will be several values, and I will put a threshold R greater than threshold. I will put, okay, as key points.
Got it, sir.
Yeah, if I apply that, here I have got 5 locations. Okay, see, in the other one, I have got only only 3 locations. That's the reason why I started with 5 key points here, 3 key points here.
Yes. Got it, sir.
Yeah, fine, good. So this is how we do. So I think you understand, right? There is a gap between them. So
K and L
they have.
sir, what if those patch sizes are different, sir?
Right, very good. So now the question is this. See, usually scales of the objects in both images will be different. View will be different. Okay, and here, as you can see, these usually where I get only key points through Harris. When I get a key point, I can fix myself to have a fixed size patch around it. But the thing is, fixed size patch, is it an ideal thing to fix? Is the next question. See, for example, if you have a one image, which is of wherein the object is occupying this much space or this much region, in another image where you have image size is same, but the object is occupying only this much. Okay, now I have found 4 key points here or 5 key points here. Here also I might have found 5 key points. Okay, but still, should I, if I keep the patch size here to be 5 cross 5, do you suggest me to put 5 here also 5 cross 5? Huh?
No, sir.
No, because the size, object size is different here. Okay, S cross S here, or it is some S dash or S dash here. Okay, so I should decide on the patch size will be maybe different here also. So it may be 3 cross 3 or say 1 cross 1 itself or 3 cross 3 just to have a. Okay, so now what I will do in such case, directly either correlation features. Okay, please note that these two are different. Okay, so I hope in my writing they matched. but I think you can understand the difference. This is correlation, this is SST. Yeah. So for finding these, you need standard patches. So usually what people will do is they can resize this object and this object to same size and use the same patch size. Okay, so same size of the window for comparison. That is one way. That means you can apply the scaling operations or a little bit of transformation operations. Sometimes the object may not be in this orientation. It may be in other orientation completely. So in that case, what they will do is if you find the object through key points, okay, you can orient it, you can rescale it using the key points itself. And then, but only thing is before that you should establish correspondence again. So it's again, for establishing correspondence itself, actually the one way is you can assume roughly that they are same size patches and find reasonable correspondence, align them, and then find finer correspondence. That is one way. The other way is, instead of intensity features, we want to find out some features which are which doesn't depend heavily on this scale or viewpoint, which are reasonably invariant to the scale and orientations. Okay, such features are more advantageous because they don't have the restriction of this photometric and geometric invariances of the object appearing across different frames. Okay, so do you know any such feature? If I have a 5x5 region, okay, if the object size is higher here, object size is smaller here, okay, I take a patch of 5x5 here and I take a patch of 3x3 here, and around each key point. I want to match them now. Do you know any feature that will give me same feature length? Okay, even for 5x5 here and 3x3 here. Can you suggest any such feature?
Histogram.
Yeah, correct. 5x5 histogram if I find. So usually histogram dimension is how much? Say if I bin the histogram, if it is 0 to 255 intensities, okay, so I can bin into say 10 bins. It's up to me. Okay, so what I will do is 0 to roughly 25 pixels is one bin. Okay, and 25 to 50 pixels is another bin, and so on. Then the dimension of this histogram will be how much? Close to 10x1. So essentially, I will be encoding this 5x5 patch as a histogram of 10x1. Similarly, this 3x3 patch, okay, can also be encoded in a histogram of 10x1. Then I can compare. Is this fine or not? Okay. Is this fine? So this is another way. There are other elegant ways that we will discuss in this class now. So essentially what the question we are trying to answer here is, at the given key points, what information should we look for? Okay, what are the features should we look for? Even in spite of current deep learning advancements, this problem is still important because the deep learning methods naively use, in some sense, convolution operations and subsampling operations as in the form of convolution neural networks or some other networks. Okay, they have a fixed structure, a reasonably guided structure, but they don't really explore the kind of domain knowledge that this computer vision has. So still, it's a reasonable research wherein we want to find out how to incorporate this feature information into the learnable filters or learning process. Okay, the deep learning methods can be reasonably fooled. So even though I think they are very elegant in giving very high accuracies for many object recognition, face recognition, or image classification, detection, and many other computer vision tasks, they can also be reasonably fooled or easily fooled with guided mathematics. Okay, so but now given this computer vision features, people are exploring how to make them like more robust. So now the question is, what kind of feature should we look for? That is the question that we are addressing now. So the outcome of the previous discussion is we should look for some features which are invariant to scale, okay, invariant to view variations, and also intensity variations. Okay, so somebody said gradients are good features. Why? May I know the reason? Now the question is this: I have two images. I have extracted key points also in these two images. Okay, so there may be equal number or more different number of key points. Okay, I may consider a patch around it. That is also fine. But what I want to find out is which are the features I should look. See, the intensity based features are very primitive or naive, because if there is a view variation, as we have seen in the previous example, okay, you will not be able to match. See, the object may be something like this here, and it may be something like this here. Okay, so you will not be able to match both of them. Like you can't say that these two are same points. Okay, even though they may be same corresponds to same scene location. Okay, so now the question is which kind of features to look for. Some answer few of you can give. So the feature should be, okay, view invariant. And what else? What else feature, like what are the properties are desirable properties of these features? Scale invariant. Okay. And then photometric invariant means what? Can you give an example? What do we mean by photometric invariant? Yeah, please tell if you know. You don't know or what? See, assume that here is a some truck, black truck, okay, or some green truck, and here is a red truck. Okay, I want to match them. I just want to find out where the truck is, or whether the truck is there or not. In that case, both are trucks or not? Yes or no?
So the trucks.
Yes. Now, which feature should I use? If I use intensity based features and find correlation, do you think they will match? Here it is green one and it is red one. Do you think will they match? I found
No,
the key
sir.
points correctly. Then what should I do then? I have to use the features that are invariant to intensity changes, right or not? That is referred to as photometric invariance. Okay. So do you know any features which are invariant to intensity variations? Can you just suggest some features which are invariant to photometric variations?
Shape.
Hmm?
Shape of the object.
What is that? Can you please repeat again?
Shape of the object, sir.
Shape of the, very good. So now the question is, how do I capture the shape of the object? So shape of the object usually doesn't change with the intensity variations, correct? But how do I capture the shape of the object?
We need to find the contours of the object first.
Okay.
And,
Right. So now the question is, fine. We need to find out the contours of the object. Which information? See, I can find out the contours of the object, fine. But the thing is, for finding contours of the object and so on, which are the guiding basic building blocks? Where should I start for?
edges, sir.
Yeah, edges I have to find. So in some sense, shape information has to be there. Okay, we need to capture, look for features depicting the shape. I think some problem here. Okay. So we need essentially the features which are view invariant, scale invariant, photometric invariant. Okay, in general, any geometric invariant features and photometric invariant features. Photometric means intensity variations. Okay, so they should be invariant to intensity variations. Such features are welcome. Okay, and the which kind of features will have that provision is okay, which has shape information in them. Okay, like edges and any other features. Do you suggest? The ones which are invariant to view and scale, okay, usually as we just mentioned, discussed before, the size of the patch around which the same information is there may be different. So essentially the feature dimension, if it has to be same for them, we need to go for histogram kind of features. So what this discussion infers is we need to go for histogram kind of features, and the histogram also depict this shape information, not just the intensity information. That is, yeah.
Doesn't histogram change with the view, sir? Because if your angle is changing, your intensity distribution might also change, sir.
Yeah, it can change. That's why actually intensity based histogram, if you find, it will change. Okay, but see, for
Okay, sir.
example, see here, the intensity distribution slightly, even if you rotate, it doesn't change much. It changes very slightly. Even the shape information also. Okay, so if you rotate, it will change. But there is a direction in which you can say that still they are same shapes, correct? So there is a
Yes, sir.
overall drift in the direction you should look for.
So depending
So
upon
we
the
will-
use case, we can deem this as a useful descriptor or not.
Right, but the objective here is we need to get some universal descriptors, in sense that for every different application, we cannot figure out new features all the time, right? So we should have a reasonable guideline in terms of the reasonable universal method or generic method for feature extraction. On the top of it, you can do for your specific application little more domain knowledge incorporation to make the features better. So we are looking for, in general now, which are good features. That is after discussion of it, then subsequently we can see, okay, for application and to application, do we need different features and so on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now essentially the takeaway points from the discussion is, yeah, histogram is a good summarization or good crisp representation around the patch or around the key point information. Okay, and the shape information can be captured by edges in the sense that they can be better captured by gradients. See, but the shape is there in gradient magnitude or in gradient angle. So
Angles,
which is the one which will
angles.
magnitude? See, the
Not
location of it you
magnitude,
can
sir.
see by magnitude, but the shape is there in which of the which are these two components or quantities?
Angle, sir. Angle
Yeah.
shape will be.
The shape is there in angle. The strength of the edge or the strength of the like variations are there in magnitude. So both are important, but the histogram that we are suggesting to find to capture the shape information is the histogram of the angles of the gradients. Okay, so that is referred to as histogram of orientation gradients. That is known to be as one of the very effective feature, especially for representing the shape of the objects in computer vision. Okay, so what you can see here in this example, there are two 7s here. In spite of the small shift in 7, okay, if you find out the histograms, okay, of the 7s, especially histogram of angles, okay, you can see that there is no way this and this will have same histogram of angles or histogram of orientations. Is this fine or not? Are you able to understand this or visualize this or not? So the features, as we said, they should be invariant to shifts as well. Because if they directly consider this as a matrix or vectorize it, okay, then what I will get, even a single shift will make the whole elements of the vector from image 1 to image 2 completely different, right? Even a single shift will make the elements of this and this vectors, image of image 1 and image 2 to be different. But if I look at the angles of this, okay, so angles roughly you can see that they're all 0 degrees, assume these are all 90 degrees, assume that these are all some 45 degrees roughly, assume that, okay, or some different degrees. Here also same. So essentially the angles are same, but even if I consider angles at each pixel, they may be different. Here the angle is, you can see that, okay, at the angle which is 90 degrees in the first image may be 0 in the second image, right? So what essentially to easily bring in the invariance through to shift, a small shifts, is through histogram. Okay, histogram enables us to make it slightly invariant to the shift in the region it is considered for. Okay, so we take the histogram and the shape information is captured through the angle of edges, and hence we take the angle of histogram of angle of edges. That is referred to as histogram of orientation gradients. Okay, so you can see that it is invariant to scale shift, small shifts, and it is also invariant to the intensity changes. See, first 7 may be with, say, in green, second 7 may be with red. Okay, red color. We assume that both are color images. Okay, even then the shape, the angle, if you see gradient angle, they will be exactly same. It is invariant to color information or slight intensity, in fact, intensity variations. Okay, and it is also invariant to small shifts or rotations as well. Fine. So how do we compute these histogram of orientation gradients? What essentially we do is, we first find out the angles at each location in the image or in the patch. So for angle of edges, first we find the gradients, okay, through either any of the mass. So here they have used simple mass to find the gradients, x gradient and y gradient. After finding magnitude of gradient and orientation of gradient, we can find, and at each of the locations you have the angle of gradients. Okay, so angle of gradients, those angle of gradients we have at each pixel. We find out the local histograms for each, say, in a given image may be divided into patches. Okay, and that patch also may be divided into cells. In each cell we may find out a histogram of orientation gradients. Okay, you just find the histogram for this, say, 4x4 region, and that is first block. Second 4x4 region, you have second block, and so on. And this gives the feature vector for each of the patch in the image. And for the whole image, if I want to find the feature vector, what do? I concatenate all these feature vectors to get a feature vector for whole image. Okay, essentially the objective may be to find out a feature vector around a given key point, or to find out feature vector for the whole image. It can be either way. In some applications, you are only interested to find out the key points or the feature vectors only around the key points. In some other applications, you may be interested to find out the feature vectors for the whole image. In that case, you divide the image into different blocks. And then for each block, you may divide into cells also if necessary. Or for each block, you find out one feature vector. Okay. And that feature vector we are suggesting, like in computer vision, is histogram of orientation gradients. There are several other improvements or other propositions for the feature vectors, but this is one of the well-known feature vector that is widely used. Also, especially this is first applied on human non-human classification, wherein what they have done is the image of dimension 128x64 is divided into different blocks, and each block is divided into cell, and for each cell they have found a histogram. Okay, And this histogram is what? Histogram of angles or orientation gradients. Okay, and angle of edges, and that they have concatenated to get the feature vector for the whole image. And that represents a, say for example, if I given for a given image, I have a feature vector. Again, for the other image, I have another feature vector. Assume that I have feature vectors for each of the images. Then what I do? I pose this as a classification problem. Okay. So if I want to classify it as human, non-human, okay, human and say images having human, images doesn't have human in it. What I do? I may, if it is supervised classification, I have a training data wherein say overall if I have 5,000 images, among that let assume that 2,000 images has humans. Okay, 3,000 images doesn't have human. In that I have a training set of 1,000 images of human, 1,000 images of non-human. Okay, then I take the feature vectors of all humans together, and I will all and non-humans images having non-humans, 1,000 images having non-humans. I will train a classifier, and then I will test the remaining images to see whether there are humans or non-humans. In this, the main process is no key point extraction, but we are only encoding the image information in terms of the local histogram of orientation gradients features. Okay. In the other example, whichever I have mentioned before, we are finding key points, or we have found the key points, and around each key point we may find out the histogram of orientation gradients. Okay, that's here. And then around each key point we have histogram of orientation gradients, and each is, say for example, some, if it is say 18x1 vector, then I will keep matching it with across all other feature points in the other image, and whichever is the good match, I will consider it as the corresponding point. This match can be done through either correlation or through square sum of square differences or absolute differences, loss functions. But instead of directly taking the image intensity features, I will be taking the histogram of orientation gradient features in this example of key point matching and establishing correspondence only at the key points. This kind of methods are referred to as, okay, the feature-based methods, wherein we are establishing either correspondence or recognition using only feature points. The other methods are referred to as global methods, wherein we are trying to find out global feature vector and trying to match them. Okay. So is this discussion clear? Or if you have any questions, you can ask now. I will just follow up a little bit on the HOZ applied for human detection, and then we will conclude the class.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, this
Yeah,
HOG
please.
for key point detection, key point matching, is it invariant to rotation also?
Yeah, so it is slightly invariant, because what we do in HOZ is we will bin them into angles, right? So different angles. See here, the whole histogram is being mapped to 10 only 10 different locations of angles. Okay, or even here only 6 different angles. That means 0 to 30 degrees is one. I will put in one bin. Okay, 30 to 60 another bin, and so on, right? So while doing so, if the 7 here is slightly rotated, okay, so less than 10 degrees, if there is a rotation, there is no harm. It will again come into the same bin roughly. So it is invariant to small rotations. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so any other questions here?
So, but that depends on how we bin it, right? So if we bin it very closely, then it might be. So how do we? What is the
Correct,
optimum
correct.
thing to bin, sir?
Yeah, it depends. See, for example, if I divide into small patches like this, okay, so essentially what I'm doing, for each, I can bin into larger number of bins. If I want to find out for the whole image as a single histogram, see, if I don't decide to find out local histogram of orientation gradient features, but I want to find global features, then what I will do, if it is global features, at least I need some distinct information, right? So what usually people do is they bin into large number of bins. Okay, so then because the variation across the image, we assume that it's already corrected. Okay, that means say, if I want to compare faces, I assume that the face images are already aligned. So essentially, I'm only considering the face region, aligned faces. So I then can consider a single histogram for them, and then the orientations I don't bother. I assume that there are not much orientation changes there. Then I think it is fine to have large number of bins or small bin size. Here you can have bigger number of bin size or lesser number of bins in local histograms.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah. So here I am not going on to the numbers, but I will tell the procedure what they have followed. So they have found out for the 64 cross 128 image. Okay, each 16 cross 16 blocks they divided into. Okay, with 50% overlap. The overlap is not to miss out the edge regions or the in between two patch regions. And with that overlap, they have got 105 blocks for this 64 cross 128. Okay, you can calculate exactly why they got 6 here, 7 here, why they have got 15 here. Okay, so they have got 105 blocks. For each of the block, they have divided into 2 cross 2 cells. Okay, and each 2 cross 2 cell is of dimension 8 cross 8. Each of the cell is 8 cross 8. For each 8 cross 8 patch, they have found a histogram of 9 bins. That means how many, what is the dimension of feature vector for each 8 cross 8? It is 9 cross 1. And how many such cells are there in blocks? Each block, you have 4 cells. Okay, so 4 into 9, that is 36 cross 1 is the dimension of feature vector for a single block. Now, given the whole number of blocks, how many what is the dimension of overall feature vector for the whole image? It is 105 into 4 into 9. That is essentially, okay, as you can see here at the end, okay, that is 3,780 cross 1. This much feature vector they have got for each of the for each of the images. Okay, and given this image, they, as I mentioned, they concatenate each of these local feature vectors to get the final feature vector of this dimension. Okay, the effectiveness of these feature vectors is that they capture the local shape. As you can see in each of them, if you see the dominant directions, they represent, if it is a human, okay, it's more oriented towards 90 degrees if we consider the vertical as 90 degrees and 45 degrees for hands and so on. So they nicely give the shape of the human in its encoding itself. And thus, when these feature vectors are used for classification, they will be much more effective than directly using the image pixel intensities. They are invariant to color, they are photometric variations, because you are finding gradients, that is the pixel differences, and the angle of gradients, that is tan inverse gy by jx. When you are, that means you are finding between intensities, your difference you are finding, and also you are dividing the angle in like difference, intensity difference in x to intensity difference in y, tan inverse gy by jx, y to x. In that way, you normalize the intensity variations across different images for finding angles. Okay, so they are invariant to photometric variations or intensities. They are also slightly invariant to shifts, because it doesn't matter whether human is here center, at the center, or at the top, or at some other region. Okay, it essentially finds out the dominant orientations, that's all. Okay, essentially we assume that there will be some dominant orientations of 90 degrees and so on overall. Okay, and then there is slightly invariant to rotations. So with this, they were the first to demonstrate very good classification for human, non-human classification in large scale. So we will end the discussion here. In the next class onwards, given these feature vectors, which are reasonably of high dimensions, okay, how do we reduce the dimension of feature vector? Is there a necessity to reduce the feature vector dimension? We will see. And then how to reduce the dimensions of feature vectors in many of the classification problems. That we will discuss in the next class. Or if you want to select some features out of this large number of features for a given image, how do we do that? Okay, that is the discussion for the next class. Also, you can ask any of the questions on the discussion today, before I conclude the class. Any questions? Okay, then. So if you have no questions, you can probably, yeah, please ask.
Sir, on the size of the feature vector, sir. I thought only if you're going to bin it 9 as 9, it should be only feature vector should be 9. How is it like 3780?
So 9 for what? So you are having 9 bins for which region in the image? For the
Having it
small
for-
cell you are seeing here, right? For the small green cell, you have nine bins. Okay, so you have 9 cross 1 vector for each of the bins here that you are looking at. Each of the cells here. Okay. Now how many cells? So for each block, 4 cells are there. Okay, how many blocks are there with 50% overlap? You have 105 blocks. Okay, so 105 blocks, each having 4 cells, each cell having 9 cross 1 feature vector, all together comes to this 3780. Is this fine?
But in the processed visualization of that, we can see that the arrows are pointing up and down, and
Right.
and so
Correct.
means that each of them are a value of that feature vector, right?
Each of them are dominant values of this feature vector. See, if you see the HOG here, there will be one angle which is dominant angle. That angle is being plotted here in showing this shape.
Right.
So
Sir,
in the yeah.
so that will be between those angles which we have binned between 1 and 9, right?
A 9 cross 1 bin. Yeah, in each 9 cross 1 binned feature vector, which is the highest value, that gives the dominant angle in that small cell. Okay, there will be some such cells for each of the regions, right? So overall, you will get for each location. So 105 locations are roughly 105 into 4 locations. You will get these kind of dominant angles.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. This is for visualization, just to show that they give a reasonably good features. Okay, but essentially when we compute feature vector, we consider all the elements.
Right, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So if there are any other questions, you can ask quickly. Otherwise, we will conclude class today. Thank you then.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.